Well, Kagiso Media's CEO Mark Harris joining us now for a look at their earnings. Thanks so much for joining us today, Mark. So let me just read out some of the numbers. Headline earnings up 24.6%. We had revenue up 40%. But before we get into the numbers, I think more important talking point is the offer that you've had ultimately from majority shareholder Kagiso TESO Holdings when it comes to that cash offer come dividend of 28 Rand 50 per share. So what's management's assessment as to whether this is an attractive offer essentially?
So Sam, I can't talk too much about it because as you imagine we're in the process at the moment. But management are fully supportive of the actual transaction, and we believe it does augur well for Kagiso Media into the future.
Because you've essentially got institutional shareholders like Sanlam, Kagiso Asset Management, and then you've got Investec. So you're in discussions right now. I mean, where do you stand when it comes to big shareholders there?
I think there will be some form of release about which shareholders are actually aboard, but a lot of the shareholders have been engaged, and we have clear line of sight as to what will happen through the transaction.
Well, there we go. We wait to hear from that, and until that comes through, I suppose we can take a look at key earnings right now when it comes to the broadcast side of the business. You've got East Coast, Jacaranda, then the less than 50% Kaya, and of course Heart and OFM. So when it comes to the performance that we've seen coming through from your radio assets right now, I mean, what's your assessment as to how they're competitively placed?
So our radio assets had a stunning performance last year. The 40% growth came out of the acquisition of Juta, but also all our radio assets actually performed very well. Both East Coast and Jacaranda, between the two of them, they grew about 16%. And if you remember the previous year, the market outlook wasn't that great, but actually they had a stunning year last year.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to advertising spend, tell us about some of the trends that you're seeing and how advertisers are negotiating when it comes to that space.
Well, when you look at the old media industry, the key thing with advertising is there is a shift. Some of the shift is moving into the internet space, into the digital space. We're fairly well positioned to try and capture that, but it's also becoming a multi-channel advertising strategy. So more and more we're seeing that our larger customers are looking at the multi-channel across radio, television, as well as digital and other forms of media in the way they advertise. So it's what we focused on. We believe that we've got great skills specifically in the digital space where we're making a lot of investments to continue to help our customers as the advertising shifts start to occur.
I mean, when it comes to the digital space, if that's classified under new media, that overall division actually making a loss during this period specifically. So there were some problems with MSN in West and East Africa right now. Glue, the digital advertising agency, has been spending money on scaling up. But tell us about the African operations there and why the losses.
So you remember the African operations have just been launched. So we really, actually, if you look at the actual take-up, and how many people actually log in onto the sites, growth is enormous.
I mean, give us an idea.
So we're seeing growth. Of course, it's off a small base of double-digit, way into 30-40% growth on a continuous basis. The issue is, of course, that you have to capture the advertising spend associated with that. So it's a new launch. We're very excited because as the listenership or the audience increases, we would expect that the advertising spend increases with that. So we're actually very optimistic because it's only really been launched in the last 2 months.
And from a content perspective right now, what is the strategy that you're looking in order to make sure that content really draws in the advertisers who are looking for the eyeballs and the quality there?
So our partnership with MSN, we have to ensure that we're able to drag the content out from the industry. So we've got a presence in the countries where they've launched MSN across Africa. We have great creativity skills, so we're actually looking to use across the broad base of Kagiso Media in order to help to drive that. So it's so far so good. We've had a look at a lot of the news that's appeared. It's very local. So this is not so much a global play or South African play. The ability to get the feeds, etc., on the local markets, that looks quite good, and we think the audience likes it based on what they're actually doing with the websites at the moment.
So what's the next territory, that you're going to launch in when it comes to MSN?
Well, of course, there's a big rollout plan across Africa, and right now we've gone into Nigeria and Kenya, And I think anyone will tell you, the other markets that's quite key there will be things like Ghana, etc. So we're in line with Microsoft's rollout of MSN across that, and you'll see those come up as they actually prioritize.
Another interesting aspect when it comes to the company right now is the fact that you've had to make contingent liabilities and put them down on the balance sheet relating to the court case that is going on around the changes to royalty laws in South Africa. So tell us about what the changes are and how they affect your business in terms of the model based on royalties.
So there's two things, right? The key thing is about the music rights and the royalties that's been requested, and the change in regulation which ICASA has at the moment. So we're working with ICASA and we're working with the association to ensure that we're in line.
How much is that in terms of the change right now, in terms of percentage royalties? How big is that change?
Well, there's various debates. If you look at the global average, people talk about 5 to 7%. Locally, they're asking for about 15%, and currently that's in court. So, we'll be able to benchmark what the right thing to do over the longer term is. But we have taken the necessary financial provisions to ensure that we can cater for it.
Is this a serious threat to the business? In terms of earnings, or is it going to take out a big chunk of earnings in the future?
Not really. As I said, we've already provided for different scenarios within that. So we're quite comfortable it's not going to have a major impact on the business going forward now.